Welcome back to page 121. You may have noticed my background's a little different. That's because today we're looking at Greyhawk Wars. These are the maps that came in the set, and based on the Darlene map. I'll take a better look at the maps in just a moment without me in front of them. And we'll take a look at the contents of the box here. This was kind of a polarizing moment in Greyhawk history. A lot of people liked that they were moving the Greyhawk story forward. A lot of people hated the fact that it was this massive war that erupts on all fronts at once and changed everything. I have to admit, I didn't buy this box set when it first came out. It came out in 1991. I was a first-time brand new dad in 1991, and frankly, a lot of my money was going into diapers. I'm sure a lot of people felt that pain. So I decided to pass on this. It wasn't until after I bought From the Ashes that I bothered going back and finding a copy of this. So we're going to take a look at the contents of the box, what was good and not so good about it, and today we're going to take a look at how the game itself played, and then we're going to take a look at a faction, not a faction booklet, but a war booklet that came in here. We'll glance at that today, but we'll go into that in deeper detail in a future video. So today on page 121, Greyhawk Wars. Okay, the Greyhawk Wars map. This was kind of neat. It was to make it more like a risk board than anything else. They broke up, pull back a little bit, get a bigger shot of it. They broke it into the two parts that we're familiar with from the Darlene map, but they put borders around everything. A green border indicates good guys. Blue, is, of course, indicates a river. And then if we have something with a black border, a red border, the red border indicates evil places, places where evil holds sway. And then a gray border, where's the gray? Gray border indicates neutrality. Now, to me, that gray doesn't look all that gray, but I'm colorblind, so that was one of the challenges I had when I first read this game. It's kind of hard to read this board if you can't see all the colors. I'm not profoundly colorblind. I can see reds and greens. I just can't see shades. So that presented a bit of a problem for me as a player of this game. And I'm going to take a look at the mechanics of the game a little bit. And you'll see the condition of my box, which is interesting. This is a legend of what all the icons mean on all the chits we're about to see. And I'm going to go through each of the cards. So let's take a look at that now. First, also, they published very conveniently the turn sequence right there on the map. So you would play with this map out as your game board. So cool idea. Going to go into some of the play and what I liked and didn't like about it. All right, here's a look at the Greyhawk box set, Greyhawk Wars. First thing I was disappointed in is this just a reprint cover from one of the old Dragons, Dragon 125, I believe. I was very disappointed in that when I first saw this in the shelves. If I'm paying for a box set, I want new cover art. $20 for the original price, as I said. At the time, my money was going into diapers. So didn't really have a lot of cash at the time. After From the Ashes came out in '92, I went back and found a copy of this just to have it to complete my collection. So inside, we got the Greyhawk Wars rulebook. This is how you actually play the game. This was only 8 pages long. So not a ton of rules to the game. The game itself reads like an old Avalon Hill game, which is not a bad thing. Long before I played D&D, I was playing the Avalon Hill games with my buddies. We played the Arab-Israeli conflict, feudal, diplomacy, a bunch of different games. And some of those games are outstanding. So this was made in kind of the same vein. Not what I was expecting from TSR in 1991, I have to say. Also, this has a little bit of flavor of the battle system, which would come out later the same year. So the credit is Dave Zeb Cook was the designer on this. He did an okay job on what I know had to have been a very tight budget. So then we have the Wars Adventurers book. This goes into the details of who battled what and why. It goes into all the details about the Greyhawk Wars. I'll take a better look at this in a future video. Interesting thing in the back of this book, though, was there were scenarios in here where you would have actual conflicts that you would resolve on the map based on these scenarios and the wind conditions brought in. Kind of interesting that this doesn't play as a full game of Risk where the entire world is always involved at once. You develop scenarios and then you play within that scenario to win a specific objective. So kind of interesting. As you can see, unpunched. Well, I never played it. I was never that interested in it, honestly. So, and then we have the different turn markers. There we go. The different types of heroes. And then the various cards. There are event cards in here, which was interesting because event cards would find their way into Spellfire a few years later. This was kind of neat because you could find treasure, and maybe here we find the Crystal of the Ebon Flame. Flip one enemy hero to its activated side play any time. So I can lay a treasure on there to revitalize my army or my hero, depending on what I've got. And then here we have treasure, but it's protected by a salamander. So I would have to fight the salamander and defeat it in order to gain the treasure. Interesting game within a game there. So here we go for some more army stock themselves. These are mercenaries. Here's some event cards. Bullywug Raid. You must add one Bullywug counter to one evil army. Play immediately. So it was just a way to vitalize your armies or to add to your troops. And then we had the kingdoms themselves. And the kingdoms would start out, if I was going to play Nyrond, I'd be the Kingdom of Nyrond. I would start out with 2 medium infantry, 2 light infantry, 2 heavy infantry, 2 medium cavalry, 1 heavy cavalry, and a ship. And then I would move about the board. The ships move in the water up the rivers, and you can put troops on the ships. The ideas were pretty good. The gameplay, I read through it with an eye toward playing it. I know that I would never have gotten my players to sit down and play this, especially the group I was playing with at the time. Roy in my group is more of a board war gamer, kind of like where I started out, but none of the others now are, and none then other than my one buddy who I used to play the board war games with, and even that, he had kind of moved past them. So I would never have gotten this on the table in 91, and I never really tried. There is an element of diplomacy in here. I can go to I have the Kingdom of Selene. If I was representing them on the game, I would have troops consisting of 1 scout, 2 elf infantry, and 1 elf infantry. And the Kingdom of Selene would be +1 if I tried to ally with any of the Ulick counties. So it's interesting. I have to admit to being underwhelmed. As I was reading through this in preparation for this video, I was kind of hoping to have my interest revitalized, but the underwhelm remained. It was based on a D10 system, and it was, I don't know, just this was not my cup of tea. I like tabletop war games. As I said, I played the old Avalon Hill, and I think this was trying to harken back to that, but I didn't feel that the execution from an otherwise great designer of David Cook. He was a really good designer. I felt that this one, it was either rushed or under budgeted, or a little from column A and a little from column B. So in the Wars rulebook, we get the idea of what the game pieces are, how to read the maps. The maps tell us that good lands are surrounded by green borders, neutral lands by gray borders, and evil lands surrounded by red borders. And the idea is that if I am adjacent to a land, I can move into that land or through that land unless there's an army occupying it, a la Risk, in which case then I have to fight the occupying army and defeat it. So there we have our cards. I just showed the player card. There's an event card. And here we go, how to read the treasure card and what we would have to fight to gain the treasure. And then how the chit looks and how it functions. And the other odd thing, the mechanic I didn't care for this in this game, is you have your troops in the field. So if I've got my guys sitting in the North Province and they're going to fight somebody from Bone March, that's all well and good. We would take the chits off the table, and we would put them on a sideboard aligned against each other, creating battle lines like this. And I could put any opponent to this one and any opponent and so on. And once they were down, they stayed. And then we went 3 turns back and forth trying to kill each other. We had to roll the army number or less and a d10 to kill them, plus modifiers from event cards and things like that. So if I was just going straight up, a cavalry versus a winged cavalry, whatever, I need a 4 or less. This guy's attacking them, I roll a 9, no wound. This guy coming back at them, a 5, no wound. The modifiers could change that around, but my 9 wouldn't have wounded in any case. If it's wounded, I flip it over. If it's already flipped over, when it gets wounded again, then it's removed from play. There are also heroes in this, which would represent the player character parties. They can only be thwarted in what they're doing. They can't be killed. They're immune to death in this, which is, I thought, especially for D&D, an odd choice. So, terrain modifies the combat. You have special troops, the cavalry, naval battles. It tried to be a lot. You can't do it in 8 pages. You just can't. And I don't feel that this one made it. I tried to avoid being negative in a review, but I can't help it. I'm sorry. I know this may be a beloved game to some people, and if it was, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear why I'm 100% wrong about this game, and it's actually one of the greatest games in the world that I've been missing for 30 years. It's going to take some convincing. I didn't feel that the rules were developed enough. I felt that the entire situation, or the entire game set, was built around a 32-page adventure booklet, and that was disappointing. Again, like I said, they put the scenarios in back here, so the idea that we're not even fighting over the entire world at once, which is what I thought it was, a Risk-type game. I was pretty excited about that, and once I read the rules, I went, oh, I'm just fighting individual skirmishes. I'm kind of confused as to why I care about this. I could do this with the old battle system, which came out in '84, or I could do it cinematically or through my game, or there are any number of ways. I didn't really need this. I am going to go into this book in greater detail because this book was the meat of what I bought this for. This tells me what happened in the wars and who fought who and everything. And as I was reading through From the Ashes in '92, I realized I had to have this booklet at least to understand what the heck had gone before. So I will go through this booklet, but I'll go through it in some detail in a future video, just to go into detail of the Greyhawk War itself, and then setting the table for the From the Ashes set. I didn't object to the wars, but I have to admit to a little bit of consumer fatigue when this came out. There was a lot of, let's change the universe around to change around, make it new and fresh. Comic books were doing that. We'd had the Great Crisis in '85. We'd had Marvel do any number of things. The Great Crisis was DC Comics reboot in '85 to '86. We had Marvel Comics doing a number of retcons in their stuff. We had Star Trek The Next Generation come out where they had advanced the story arc 80 years. Traveler was in the Great Rebellion when this came out. I had consumer fatigue for changing the old sets that I had grown up with, or not grown up with, but my gaming life had grown up with, or comic books, and changing them over to be something new and exciting for people who weren't buying or viewing prior to that. So that was also some of my dislike of this game, and some of the reason I didn't buy it in '91. That, and of course, the diapers. So that's it. I will take a look at the Adventurers book from this set in a future video. This is worth having, and an important part of the Greyhawk Wars From the Ashes set. But that's really about all I can say for this. You do get 2 die 10 with it, which was pretty nice. TSR at the time was having some financial trouble. They weren't always including little niceties like that, so it was nice that they did that. I wish I could say better things about this book. David Cook is a top flight writer. Always loved his stuff. Really disappointed in this one. Again, prove me wrong. Tell me why this is just, boy, this was the greatest time you had, coming home from school and playing this game for months on end with your friends. And, it took over your table for a full year. I want to hear the stories. Convince me, and maybe I'll even punch it and play it. So that's all I've got to say about Greyhawk Wars. I'll look at the booklet another time, and if you have positive things to say about it, please let me know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with this. I try not to be negative in my reviews, but I felt I had to touch on this one, and I had to be true. So that's it for today from page 121. Thanks for watching. Please remember the Patreon if you can. Help the channel survive and grow. And I'll see you next time.